Hey guys, and welcome to our review of Dead by Daylight, released on Steam June 14th, 2016 and developed by Behaviour Interactive. Dead by Daylight is a 4v1 multiplayer horror game in which one player takes on the role of a killer whose objective is to catch 4 people and kill them. The other 4 players are survivors whose objective is to escape the killer with as many people alive as possible. Upon first glance, the premise of Dead by Daylight is quite simple, but as you delve into a few hours of play, you'll find there's actually a fairly deep metagame to master. Before you start the game, you select whether you'd like to play as a killer or a survivor. If you choose to play as survivor, there are 28 characters to pick from, each with their own unique skill sets and playstyles. Some of these characters are from franchise horror films like Laurie Strode from Halloween and Ash Williams from Evil Dead, but there's also plenty of Dead by Daylight originals too. Each game starts you off on a random procedurally generated map in which you must find and repair 5 generators. Once the generators are repaired, the level's 2 exit gates are powered and the survivors can escape the level. This sounds simple enough, however the generators are randomly placed around the map and you are typically spawned scattered away from other survivors. This can be a help or a hindrance depending on your playstyle. Repairing a generator is quicker the more players who help, but there's more chance of getting caught as a group. Some survivors like to play as lone wolves, away from the action, being as sneaky as possible, whereas some like to attract the killer's attention and distract them away from the generators. If you end up being the last person alive with a bunch of generators to repair on your own, a special exit hatch opens somewhere in the level, and if you find it you can jump in and escape, if the killer doesn't find it first. One of the cornerstones of survivor gameplay is the skill check. Interacting with most objects in the game can cause random skill checks to trigger. The player can perform a good skill check which has no consequence, a great skill check which speeds up progression of the action the player is taking, or a bad skill check which usually notifies the killer of the survivor's location and may also cause a loss of progress. My only criticism of this skill check system is that it's more difficult if you have a higher latency. It's hard to land those greater skill checks with a 300 ping. Survivors and killers each have the option to utilise up to 4 perks in their loadout, which gives their characters special abilities. Survivor perks can range from giving a burst of speed when running from the killer, to being able to self-heal without a first aid kit, to unlocking the ability to sabotage hooks without a toolbox. Perks, add-ons and items like toolboxes and medkits can be unlocked through the Blood Web, a skill tree where each character can spend in-game currency. You can really change the way your character plays by organising your perks to suit certain builds. I like to have my character build around healing and team play, whereas some builds concentrate on speed and avoidance. It's totally up to you. If you do happen to get attacked by the killer, you'll become injured. This state has your character whimpering and bleeding all over the ground, leaving a trail for the killer to follow. If they hit you again before you're able to heal or be healed by another player, you'll be knocked down and incapacitated. Once you're knocked down, the killer can pick you up and put you on the sacrificial hook. You can be rescued off the hook twice, but if you get hooked a third time, you are permanently out of the game and your computer will display the blue screen of death, rendering it useless until you restart. Although, when you do finally get killed, there is a sense of relief in knowing that you may have scratched the itch of a person who may otherwise have been a school shooter, if not for having Dead by Daylight as an outlet. The less players are alive, the slimmer your chances of survival are, so make sure you look after your teammates. There's some tough choices to make in these situations. You might nearly be finished repairing a generator, only to find a teammate is hooked and needs your help as their death clock ticks. This is the point where you need to make the call. Finish the repair or save your teammate. If you decide to play killer, you get your choice out of 24 different characters. Some are original concepts and some are from famous horror franchises. These include Michael Myers from Halloween, Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street, Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Pyramid Head from Silent Hill. The Dead by Daylight originals are actually pretty intimidating too. Here's a few of them. Each killer has a unique skill set that alters their playstyle. For example, if you play as Michael Myers, your gameplay centres around stalking characters, which feeds your inner evil, allowing you to be faster and do more damage to survivors. Whereas the Wraith can cloak, turning invisible and moving faster, but being unable to strike survivors while hidden. If you choose to play as the Hillbilly, you can wield a chainsaw which allows you to dash quickly along the map and instantly knock down survivors you come into contact with. Every killer's ability can be enhanced with items found in the blood web similar to survivors. Additionally, killers have the ability to damage generators, hindering their repair progress. They also have an aura reading ability, which reveals the location of generators, hooks, and sometimes survivors. Most killers have an innate terror radius that surrounds them. Survivors inside this radius will hear a heartbeat, which increases in intensity with proximity to the killer. This adds an incredibly intense and theatrical feel to the game for survivors, as the killer draws near. There's a whole host of killer perks to choose from, ranging from seeing survivors' auras, hindering their struggle time while being carried, and locking down generators to prevent them from being worked on. A certain nasty perk has the ability to suppress your terror radius under certain conditions, enabling you to surprise unaware survivors. This kind of killer gameplay is sneaky as fuck and really sends shivers down my spine. So what's the verdict? Dead by Daylight has a lot to offer in terms of replayability. To keep things competitive, there's a ranking system that attempts to match you with players that are around your skill level, and for the most part it succeeds in doing this. The times it doesn't, it has you coming up against high-ranked players who've spent hundreds of hours perfecting being a killer, and this can be quite intimidating at times and genuinely scary. I think one of my favourite things about Dead by Daylight is that every game you play will be different in some way. You never know what killer you're going to be up against until you see them charging at you through the darkness. The game offers so many movie-like moments that will have you on the edge of your seat. This, coupled with the randomised levels and frequent developer updates including killers, survivors, locales and balance patches, keeps everything feeling fresh and competitive. My only real qualms with Dead by Daylight are that matchmaking times can often be slow and the updates for the game take sometimes up to an hour to install, even if they're 50 megabytes. Definitely poor coding on Behaviour Interactive's part. If you like cooperative games or just enjoy killing players like rats in a maze, Dead by Daylight won't disappoint. It's a must-play for any horror fans. Coming in at $29 Australian on Steam, it's worth every cent. I'm going to leave it at that, guys. Once again, a big thanks to our patrons and all our loyal viewers. Catch you on the next one.